Buying a home. Is it really worth buying a home in today's market? That seems to be everybody's question. Be sure to watch this video all the way through to get the answer to whether buying now even makes sense. In this episode, we're going to discuss the current state of the economy and how that would affect your decision if you should purchase now or you should wait. Next, we'll discuss the primary advantages and disadvantages of buying a home. Then I'll wrap it up by proposing a couple of different questions to help you decide if now is the right time to purchase. Okay, to begin with, let's get this kicked off with what's happening in the economy right now in 2023, the beginning of February. The first thing that I want to talk about is what everybody's talking about. They're talking about inflation. They're talking about recession that's looming the later part of the year. They're talking about Fed interest rate hikes. They're talking about massive amounts of credit card debt. They're talking about the lowest amount of savings that we've ever seen in America. So all these things are coming to kind of the forefront of the discussion around, is now a good time to buy a home, right? So I'll give you my opinion on all that I've seen. I'm an avid investor. I have a really good kind of pulse on what's happening in the economy. And here's what I've seen. I've seen that we've bottomed out in December and January, mostly because of the Fed rate hikes. Anytime you raise interest rates at the federal level, the cost of borrowing money becomes very, very expensive. Now, to be fair, a lot of people think that this is the most crazy thing the Fed has ever done. But the reality is that we were at such a low cost of borrowing for so long. Remember, the cost of borrowing was hardly anything. The Fed rate was like at zero. Less than 1%, and it was there forever, right? So the Fed really needed to start stepping up that interest rate to start making the cost of borrowing money more normalized. And that's all they're doing right now. That's all they're doing is they're stepping up the interest rate so that the cost of borrowing money costs more money. In the process of doing that, what ends up happening is things become more expensive, people stop buying as much as they're buying, and inflation comes down. Remember, inflation is going up because people have too much money and they're spending it everywhere, right? So the Fed's trying to step in and say, okay, this is going to be runaway inflation. We've got to do something about it. Let's get back to normal levels. Now, having said that, we're getting back to normal levels. That's all we're doing here. Now, in terms of what I've seen in the economy, is I've seen things start to go in the right direction, right? I see the Fed is starting to lower how much they're increasing rates. I see inflation is coming down. I see purchasing is coming down. I see all the right metrics are starting to happen to really start moving the economy again. And that's a good thing, right? Are we going to jump back to where we were in 2021? No, we're not going to. Probably not this year or next year, but we'll get back there. So what does that have to do with purchasing a home? Well, as you know, mortgage interest rates have been quite high, and they're beginning to settle back down. Remember, historically, a good mortgage rate is going to be somewhere between 4.5% and 6%. That's always been what a good mortgage interest rate was. The last many years, we've just happened to be at a very, very low level. 2.5%, 3.5%. You and I probably will never see those rates again ever in the history of ever in our lifetime. However, we will see normal interest rates, which is what is happening now. Now, I'm curious, what do you think? What do you think about the economy? In the comment section, tell me what you think's happening in the economy. Tell me what you think's going to happen throughout 2023. I'm really interested to know what you're thinking. And while you're adding a comment in this section, please do me the biggest favor. Please like and subscribe to my channel. As you know, the YouTube algorithm requires that you like and subscribe to my channel in order for me to grow my channel. I'm newer on the scene, and your help would be much appreciated. Okay, so let's talk real quick about the primary advantages of buying a home. The primary advantage is twofold, really. One is going to be financial, and one is going to be psychological. The financial part of that is obviously very, very important. You're going to own a piece of property, you're going to own some land, and every month when you make your mortgage payment, you're going to be paying down principal. And more than likely, your property value is going to be increasing. And what that means is that every year your property, your home is going to be worth more than what it was the year before. So if you're currently a renter, what you're doing is you're making your landlord absolutely fantastically wealthy. And the reason is because you're paying down their principal on their note, their property, whether it's an apartment complex or a home, is increasing in value every single year, and you're making them millionaires when you should be really investing in yourself. The other advantage is going to be psychological. There is something about owning your own home, having your own property, that is just phenomenal. Now, there are obviously some disadvantages to buying a home. First of all, if you're transient, in other words, you like to move around a lot, you're obviously going to be stuck in a place for a while. The common amount of time you should stay in a home is, in general, 5 years. So if you're not committed to 5 years, you probably shouldn't buy a home. If you're somebody who has a job and you travel all over the place, if you're a truck driver as an example, and you're driving state to state and you really don't have a place to live, probably not a good idea to purchase if you don't actually have a home base. Another disadvantage is going to be, obviously, there's going to be maintenance and repair costs. I promise you, if your water heater goes out, it's not that big of a deal. It's $1,000, $2,000, unless you get a tankless water heater, and that can be, a few $1,000s. If you're living in a home and your HVAC system goes out, it's going to cost you a lot of money. We're talking $6,000 to $8,000 minimum to get a new HVAC system in your house. So there are repair costs, but you can buy home warranty for that stuff. You can buy a home warranty, spend $50 to $100 a month, and your home warranty program will pay for all that stuff. So you now may be asking yourself, is now a good time to buy? And I'll tell you, from what I've seen on the data and the numbers, everything's starting to level off. House prices are already starting to level off. Remember, just a few short months ago, it was a complete seller's market. And what that meant was that sellers could request, and I'm in the Dallas area, it happened in the Dallas area. If the house was going for $400,000, they would have 10 different buyers on it, and somebody would pay $50,000, $100,000 over ask value. It was happening all over the place. It was a total seller's market. The reason? Because interest rates were 2.5% to 3.5%. They didn't care. They were like, I'll pay extra. It doesn't matter, because interest rates were so low that they knew they were still getting a bargain. Now, interest rates are beginning to climb up, and they've gone quite high, all the way up to 7.5%. Now they're coming back down to closer to 6%, and eventually they'll be in the fives, back to normal, which we haven't seen in a long time. Many years. But once they arrive back to that kind of normal level, and it's already starting to happen, the market starts to flip. It's no longer a seller's market. Right now, we still do have inventory issues. In other words, there's still not enough homes because of COVID, because of not being able to build enough homes. There's still an inventory shortage-ish, but it's starting to level out. And what that means is that sellers aren't going to have all the control. I'm seeing buyers right now. I'm seeing buyers, and a lot of them, they're able to negotiate with sellers. Sellers are not only buying down their rate, in other words, they're paying extra money so that they don't have to pay a 6 or 7% interest rate, but they're also paying closing costs. So house values are coming down. People are no longer paying $50,000, $100,000 over ask on the home. Sellers are making concessions. The market's starting to get pretty nice. So the one kind of litmus test that I always tell everybody, especially my clients, because a lot of my clients are trying to buy a home, is kind of the test for you is, what are you paying in rent? If you have a situation where your rent is very, very low, way below market, that may not be that bad of a deal. But most people are paying extraordinary amounts in rent, anywhere from $1,500 from what I've seen on the low end, all the way up to, I've seen $3,000, $3,500 a month. If you're paying that much in rent, you're essentially just throwing away $100 bills every single month. If you're paying $2,000 a month in rent, you're throwing away 20 $100 bills, and you're not getting anything in return for that. Now, that is a huge, huge opportunity cost. My opinion, if you're paying those types of rents, is it's almost always a good time to buy. Now, there's some exceptions. Southern California, some other really hot areas in Miami. There are exceptions to where it's not a good time to buy because the cost of living is so high and house prices are also so high, it may not make sense to make a purchase in those types of areas. But as far as the rest of the US is concerned, what I've seen is that if you're going to stay in a home for 5 years, in almost all cases, your house is still going to appreciate in value, and you can always refinance that 7 or 6% note later on when rates drop even further. So should you take the leap of faith now to buy a home, or should you wait? Well, I can tell you one thing. Timing the market is very, very difficult. There are really good deals everywhere, even in today's market. Trying to time it for it to bottom out and interest rates also bottom out is very, very hard. So again, if you're paying really high rent and you've got the stability, you know you're going to be in one place for some time, and you're not in a really hot market where housing prices are still through the roof, maybe a good time to buy. Did you know that most lenders in most states have first-time home buyers programs? In fact, in Texas, we have bond programs that allow for people to get into a home and not only pay their closing costs, but pay some of their down payment. Combine that with seller concessions, and you might be able to get into a home for virtually no cost at all. So if you're in the market to buy a home, please click in the link in the description below. Sign up for a complimentary credit analysis. We'll take a look at your credit. We'll tell you if there needs to be some improvement to buy a home, and then we'll pass you off to one of the hundreds of lenders that we work with in the 50 states and try to get you into a home.